What's up everyone, David here. Welcome back to another video. This is a special one. I was recently called to mix a very cool project. The name of the artist is Salvador Dream. Some of you might be familiar with them. Such an interesting story. They were a huge influence for the genre in the 90s, and they really influenced so many artists after them, but unfortunately they never got the recognition that they deserved. And that's exactly why this project has been brought back to life, remixed and remastered by yours truly. And there's actually a documentary called The Reawakening of Salvador Dream. There's a trailer out, I'll put it in the link down below, and the documentary will be released shortly after. Because of how influential this band was, how ahead of their time they were. Some will say too ahead of their time, too unique for that era, which just few years after became basically mainstream. The recordings for these songs, which were done on tape. So what we're gonna see is what I got, which is the transfer from tape, which is also gonna be very interesting. I have a few songs. I'm gonna break one that is called A Single Gun Theory. And of course, if you wanna hear the final product, you will have to wait for the release of the 2025 version of these songs by Salvador Dream, because there are older versions, which of course are not my mixes. But we're gonna get a sneak peek here, and we're gonna break down the whole mix, seeing all the moves, plugins, hardware, automation, and everything. Part of this will be free for everybody here on YouTube. And if you want to see the whole breakdown of the mix, you can go to mixbusstv.com. In there, you can also book mix and mastering with me and find all available courses. If you like this video, please don't forget to leave a like, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to support the channel, please consider using the super thanks or grab some merch. Let's get to the video. All right, we start by listening a little bit of the mix, I guess. And here we go. All right, you get the idea. And like I said, when the new version is going to be released, you can hear it as many times as you want. Let's start breaking down the mix and see what did I do. So first of all, we have real recorded acoustic drums with bleed from bass guitars and all that. And it's very cool. This is the drum with nothing on it. Sounds absolutely great, even just like this. There's screams, there's bleed on it. It's unapologetically 90s power and anger. So there's no samples on the drums other than one kick sample. So let's start with the raw kick that I had. All right, pretty cool. I have a smart gate just to clean it up a little bit. All right, you will notice that even the gating is very natural. I don't want to do a modern, all-in grid, everything super gated metal record that was recorded yesterday, right? Everything needs to sound natural. And back then, we weren't trying to completely annihilate bleeds. We are working with the bleed, and you will see it as we go on breaking down the mix. The first plugin that I have on the kick is Console 1. We have a little bit of cut around 800, a little bit of drive, and a little bit of compression, all of it with SSL 4K. I used SSL 4K for the entire project. Maybe I have a couple of modules here and there, but this is how it sounds without it. Massive difference, just that cut. It's a 7 dB cut, but a cut at 100 makes the kick drum sound tighter and more powerful, okay? Then I have SSL EQ, which is my favorite if you follow me for kick and snare, and we're gonna see the settings. I basically just use it, I'm in black mode, or no, brown mode, and I'm just literally using for the low end and a little bit of click, so this is sound without. Okay, so a lot rounder, a lot more powerful, and then we have our sample, which sounds like this. I have console 1, no compression, a little bit of drive, and a little bit of cut at 400. Together they sound like this, and you also can hear that the sample itself is very dynamic. Console 1, on the sum of these two kicks, they go to this kick sum bus, and I have console 1 on here, just low cut at 18, a little bit of drive, no compression, no anything, so this won't really make that much of a audible difference. All right, it's just lower in level because I did a little bit of gain staging for it. And then I have the main compressor for the kick is my 1178, which we're gonna see the settings. This is without. With. Okay, so I'm not compressing 10 dB, I'm just tapping it. I just want the color, right? So the 78 has got that grit, so we have a little bit more mid-range grunt and a little tighter and a little more snap. Not night and day. K-clip is there to catch sporadic peaks if there's any. You can see it's working at 0.1 dB, so maybe it will go up to a dB at some point in the mix, but it's just there as a safety net. And then the API 560 with a little more top and a little 60 hertz. Now, when you see an EQ at the end of a chain like this, I usually put it when I hear everything going on and I need a little more. Could be top end, could be low end, could be mid-range, could be both. And this is the difference that it makes. A little more booty, a little more mid-range click, okay? This is all for the kicks, and then we have the snare, and this is how it sounds raw. We have smart gate to clean it up, to clean up the bleed. Again, you see how natural the release is, okay? We're not trying to annihilate the bleed, we're just reducing it. And this snare sounds amazing as is. It couldn't be more 90s, and I love it. Console 1, just to add a little more body around 300 and a little more openness at 2-3K. Very slow attack compression and drive. Okay, not that much EQ, just a little rebalancing, because the main EQ you will see it comes on the sum, because I have a parallel with the SSL EQ, and this is the parallel. I have Dynamite, which you saw me using many times for this purpose. This adds the snappiness to it. This is in a parallel. A lot more snappiness, okay? K-clip again to catch some peaks. I can be heavy-handed on this because it's a parallel, okay? And as you can see, I'm using my smooth algorithm, which is my preferred algorithm for kick and snare. And then the parallel and the snare go to the snare sum bus, where we have a console 1 again. Let's bypass it, let's open it. Right, just a little bit of EQ, more 4 or 5K and a little less of 1.3K right there, and more grit. This is, you will see now it comes the hardware insert, which is another SSL EQ. It's more for the SSL grit and color than for the actual EQ, because there's not much boosting, but let's see it. I'm in black mode this time on this EQ. I'm in shelf mode here at the top, a little bit more high mid-range, nothing else on the bottom channels. This is without. Okay, not much. Like I said, a little more grit and a little more openness, and then K-clip again to catch sporadic peaks. It works around 1 dB. Right, just to control headroom and give myself a little more headroom. I added a little bit of reverb on the snare. Again, we want the 90s style, so we're not looking for hanger type of reverb, and it's very low in the mix, but I really love how it sounds, because you will hear we have amazing sounding room mics, so it blends really well. You don't really catch that there's a digital delay in there, and it's an unobtainium on Valhalla plate, which is one of my favorites. The trim is just for automation levels, and this is how it sounds. Right, gives a little more depth more than anything. And these are our kick and snare together. All right, then we go to toms. So of course the tom mics were open all the time, but we have only a few hits. So I'm gonna have you listen to rack and floor tom here with no processing on it. And there's bleed everywhere. All right, we got vocals bleed in there, and there's smart gate for both. So this is how they sound gated. Again, very natural, okay? And then for both, we have console 1, tom. Let me solo it, and it sounds like this. This is the EQ that we have. We remove some 900. Actually quite a lot, about 9 dB, and then we have compression and drive without, right? That 800 boxiness there is gone. Just a tad more 3.5K here. We don't want, again, to make them modern metal, but they need a little more life there. And then there's the floor tom, which has a similar EQ. You can see the settings without and with. There's also gain staging, so it's a little lower in level. Again, we clean up the 800 area, we add a little more 3K, little lower the top end on that floor tom. And then they go to the tom sum, which also has a console 1, but there's nothing, no processing in there. Then we have the hat. So we had a spot mic for the hat, and it sounded pretty amazing to be honest. So I didn't really do much, and that's, again, a great thing about having great musicians recorded well. There's the mixes come together much faster and with so much less processing. But there's literally just a filter and a little bit of drive. So this is without. And this is with. That's really not much. And the overheads. So overhead sounds pretty great, and this is an important thing. Overheads and room mics are crucial for the overall drum sound and the sound of the entire song, because this is not 2025 sample-based drum metal where kick and snare are 25 dB louder than everything else, and you can barely hear the cymbals right in the background, right? No, this is 90s Andy Wallace style. The overhead and the cymbals need to be screaming, need to be loud, and need to be very upfront, okay? This is how they sound with nothing on it. All right, listen to how balanced they sound, right? Usually in modern recordings, I receive the snare is louder than everything, right? That's really also the drummer, not just the mic positioning, but the overheads here are mostly getting the image, the stereo image of the cymbals, and then a little bit of snare. And the kick drum is just down there. Why? Because we have room mics, which I'm gonna play for you, which sound amazing. And those mics get the whole drum kit picture. I love this track so much. There's bleed from the guitar, there's screaming going in the background. You cannot fake a drum room like this. You just can't. You need a great room, great drummer, great drum, great microphones, and great recording. And it's so powerful. But yeah, this is a big difference and a lesson on when you record real acoustic drums, having in mind clearly what gets what. The overhead are the top picture of the kit, a little bit of snare and the stereo image of the cymbals, right? And then we have the full kit with the drum room. So let's solo the head overhead, and then let's see with the console one is our first processing that's really just filters and drive. So right, clean up. Notice my high cut at 10. We don't want everything ultra bright like it's, you know, very often is today. So don't be afraid to cut that low on the high cut. And then I have Nova GE. This one is important. So without. Why? We said it earlier, because I want to push these, I need to push these overheads and be heard. I need these cymbals to be raw and angry and screaming at you. But I also need to control the hard hits like this, otherwise when we go to commercial 20-25 levels, they're gonna rip your ears off. So that gives me a little more control for, you know, things like that. Okay, center around 4K, and then we have the room mics. And here we have again console one. Let's see what we have, probably just filters. Yep, and drive. I did a little bit of gain staging because they were very loud, so there's a minus 14 dB. And then I have a Pro Q3 to take care in dynamic mode of this specific B2 note at 123. This is not the drum. This is the this is the bass bleeding into the room mics. And so all right, so I allowed myself to do this very clinical, very precise move, because although we are talking about tape recording old style, that's what I'm called for, right? To keep the character and to make them sound like everybody's expecting them to sound, but today, without overpowering with too much processing or too much detail or automation or things like that. But this allowed, this one single move, I allowed myself to do this because that allows me to push the bass to the level that I want it, because the bass here is huge and it's angry and it needs to be like that. So this little move cleaned up a lot and gave me more freedom to make the bass stand in front and center later on. Mono room, this is very low in the mix, but still makes a difference. Just gain staging and a cut an 88. There's no compression, there's no processing whatsoever. And then we have spot mics for cymbals. And you can see each one where they come, right? And I didn't gate them, of course. I just, again, work with the bleeds, because you can hear this one. This is our ride, right? When it's not playing the ride, I still have this track open, just a filter. I literally just got what was useless information down there. And then we have the second cymbal spot mic. which again, we have console 1 with just filters. And Nova GE doing pretty much the same thing that we saw in the other track. Taking care of the hard hits so I can push the cymbals and the overheads and the room mics up and front, okay? We have a percussion track, but this was for another song, not for this song. And then everything goes to a drum bus here. And the reason, because I send all my drums to a drum submix and then to the drum out where I have more processing, is because I want to send my drum mix as is to a parallel channel in which I have console 1 that doesn't have any processing, but I have a decapitator on it. So this is how it sounds with the parallel distorted drum. So without first. Okay, a lot more power, a lot more density, and that is where my cut at the top end at 12 or 10K comes in handy, because now I can distort this and I can have my loud cymbals without being harsh, and I'm able to distort this track and add more power without worrying about that. Everything, so the drums and the drum parallel distorted go to the drum out, in which I have console 1 again, just filter at 13, 19, a little bit of compression, a little bit of drive, without. Okay, there's a little bit of gain staging because I was coming a little hot, and the reason because I needed gain staging is because we have my hardware insert now, which is my API 5500, sorry, and my Fatso. So let's see the settings and let's hear them. I'm gonna bypass the Fatso first, and we're gonna hear the EQ first. All right, I'm adding low end of 40 in bell mode, not shelf. I'm removing a little bit of 100, and then adding a little bit of crack with the high mids and a little bit of shelf. So we are in a half mode. So every click is 1 dB and not 2. So I'm adding 2 dB here in shelf, 1 dB, 1 dB, 2 dB. All right, nothing opens up a drum like API sound, and that's just not only the tight low end and the powerful mid-range, but it's just the box tone itself. That's why I love it so much for drums. After this, we go to the Fatso. Fatso is in bus mode, and I am not running the transformer, and you will see I'm barely tapping it. Of course, I adjusted my threshold control to basically have the ratio that I wanted between saturation and compression. So this is without. Okay, not night and day, but an important difference. You saw that the worm circuit also catches the hard hits on drums, on cymbals, sorry, which helps me ensure that the cymbals will never get too harsh or too loud. The tape circuit gives me a little more grit on kick and snare, especially on snare, and just a tad a little bit of compression to tighten everything together. And after that, I just have a Tokyo Lab infrasonic. I usually use it when I use hardware insert, and K-clip catches sporadic peaks as a clipper on the drum bus. And then we have our bass. And if you're on YouTube and the video ends here, thank you for watching. I hope you liked it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment down below. If you want to see the full mix breakdown, go to the website mixbesttv.com. In there, you can also book mix and mastering with me and see all the courses available. If you want to support the channel, please consider using the super thanks or grab some merch. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe. See you next time.